This is Filter-Free Radio.
This is what democracy looks like.
FilterFreeRadio.com. And now, your host, Jacob Dean.
What is the right balance between liberty and security? This question is as old as the American Republic itself. It became more acute after 9/11 and far more complicated with the widespread use of computers and cell phones. This week it burst onto the open, and this morning the president had to go on the defensive.
When it comes to telephone calls, nobody is listening to your telephone calls. Now, with respect to the internet and emails, this does not apply to U.S. citizens, and it does not apply to people living in the United States.
But it does apply to people in Britain, for instance. There have been almost 200 intelligence reports generated by this program from the UK last year alone. GCHQ, Britain's domestic spying agency, working with the Americans by circumventing British law. The program is called PRISM, and it started under President Bush here in the National Security Agency, the world's biggest eavesdropping organization.
Welcome back to the second hour of the program. It is so good to be with you. We're broadcasting live on FilterFreeRadio.com. You can give us a call, 503-746-TALK. The only question I would like to hear from folks on this hour, if you do call into the program, is to please answer this question. Do you think Edward Snowden is a hero? Yes or no, and why? Is Edward Snowden a hero? If you're going to give us a call this hour, that's the question I would like you to answer at 503-746-TALK. You can call that number anytime, 24/7. Scott, I'm going to get right into this this video from The Guardian, which you posted on our Facebook page at facebook.com/.
Thanks to Democracy Now! and the Real News Network, both of which sent me emails about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known. I mean, I guess I got to watch corporate media, but I didn't know otherwise.
Yeah, and so let's just get to it. This is the conversation that is sparking all of the news and everything. And Scott and I are going to go in between each question and kind of give our thoughts. And we want your thoughts as well. If you want to comment on what Ed is talking about, or the need for whistleblowing and the need for our moral nonviolent rebellion to really grow and happen, I want to hear from you. So give us a ring.
My name's Ed Snowden. I'm 29 years old. I work for Booz Allen Hamilton as an infrastructure analyst for NSA in Hawaii.
What are some of the positions that you held previously within the intelligence community?
I've been a systems engineer, systems administrator, senior advisor for the Central Intelligence Agency, solutions consultant, and a telecommunications information systems officer.
One of the things people are going to be most interested in trying to understand who you are and what you're thinking is there came some point in time when you crossed this line of thinking about being a whistleblower to making the choice to actually become a whistleblower. Walk people through that decision-making process.
When you're in positions of privileged access, like a systems administrator for these sort of intelligence community agencies, you're exposed to a lot more information on a broader scale than the average employee. And because of that, you see things that may be disturbing, but over the course of a normal person's career, you'd only see one or two of these instances. When you see everything, you see them on a more frequent basis, and you recognize that some of these things are actually abuses. And when you talk to people about them in a place like this, where this is the normal state of business, people tend not to take them very seriously and move on from them. But over time, that awareness of wrongdoing sort of builds up, and you feel compelled to talk about it. And the more you talk about it, the more you're ignored, the more you're told it's not a problem. Until eventually you realize that these things need to be determined by the public, not by somebody who was simply hired by the government.
This is just another name in an unfortunate, now growing rapidly list of people that have the courage to come forward to tell us about something that we need to know public knowledge about, and so the public can make a decision on if this is right or wrong, should this continue or stop, how do we feel about this, we the people, we the government, isn't it we the people, right? So shouldn't we the people have all of the information so we can make the accurate decisions on what's going on? And then you see, of course, these people, these examples, they are suppressed. They are silenced. It is the retaliation stage of the 6 stages of whistleblowing. The people, the managers decide that the whistleblower is the problem, and we have to fire the whistleblower. We have to silence the whistleblower, attack the whistleblower, demotion, scold them, smearing. Of course, on a much higher scale, it's a full prosecution. The guy, we heard the clip from the guy from ABC, said he's going to get hit with the book. They're going to throw the book at him. The question is how heavy is the book going to be? That's the question.
It's going to be very heavy-handed because, this is a crack in the NSA. It's one thing to have Bradley Manning, who was in the military, or a hacker like this guy who hacked in the Stratfor, or even the guy who blew the whistle on torture, John Kirkow. The NSA is, as far as people are concerned, you don't talk about the NSA. We only told you it exists because you found out about it, but otherwise we don't want to talk about it. And so to have someone inside there, even though it's worth noting he was a contractor, not an actual employee, which then again raises more questions about why do contractors have this kind of vast access, right? I've already read where his, all his relatives' homes and things have been raided, and everything that he ever had in contact with in Hawaii has already been raided. Yeah. And so I'm sure they're questioning his friends and family for sure at this point. So he went to Hong Kong, and it's just. It raises more questions than it answers, I think, really, because I don't think there's anything we didn't already suspect.
Right. Let's go back to this conversation with Glenn Greenwald at The Guardian.
Talk a little bit about how the American surveillance state actually functions. Does it target the actions of Americans?
NSA and the intelligence community in general is focused on getting intelligence wherever it can, by any means possible, that it believes on the grounds of sort of a self-certification that they serve the national interest. Originally, we saw that focus very narrowly tailored as foreign intelligence gathered overseas. Now, increasingly, we see that it's happening domestically. And to do that, the NSA specifically targets the communications of everyone. It ingests them by default. It collects them in its system, and it filters them, and it analyzes them, and it measures them, and it stores them for periods of time, simply because that's the easiest, most efficient, and most valuable way to achieve these ends. So while they may be intending to target someone associated with a foreign government or someone that they suspect of terrorism, they're collecting your communications to do so. Any analyst at any time can target anyone, any selector anywhere. Where those communications will be picked up depends on the range of the sensor networks and the authorities that that analyst is empowered with. Not all analysts have the ability to target everything, but I, sitting at my desk, certainly had the authorities to wiretap anyone, from you or your accountant to a federal judge to even the president if I had a personal email.
Even the president, if I had a personal email. Really? You could wiretap?
I don't know what that means. Who gives him the authority? I guess what he's implying is that I just need your email address, and then I can go down the rabbit hole and find out everything about you.
I would.
I think what he was saying.
I would also agree with you on that.
One of the extraordinary parts about this episode is that usually whistleblowers do what they do anonymously and take steps to remain anonymous for as long as they can, which they hope often is forever. You, on the other hand, have decided to do the opposite, which is to declare yourself openly as the person behind these disclosures. Why did you choose to do that?
I think that the public is owed an explanation of the motivations behind the people who make these disclosures that are outside of the democratic model. When you are subverting the power of government, that's a fundamentally dangerous thing to democracy. And if you do that in secret consistently, as the government does when it wants to benefit from a secret action that it took, it'll kind of give its officials a mandate to go, hey, tell the press about this thing and that thing, so the public is on our side. But they rarely, if ever, do that when an abuse occurs. That falls to individual citizens, but they're typically maligned. It becomes a thing of these people are against the country, they're against the government. But I'm not. I'm no different from anybody else. I don't have special skills. I'm just another guy who sits there day to day in the office, watches what's happening, and goes, this is something that's not our place to decide. The public needs to decide whether these programs and policies are right or wrong. And I'm willing to go on the record to defend the authenticity of them and say, I didn't change these. I didn't modify the story. This is the truth. This is what's happening. You should decide whether we need to be doing this.
And Scott, when we were talking before,
Wow.
wow, right? Scott, when we were talking before the show, you were telling me your theories on why Ed wanted to come forward and publicly ready.
He kind of, when you listen to the whole interview, he kind of says it without saying it, but it seems pretty obvious to me that when he gets killed, he wants people to know that he was the one who did it, and that's why he was killed. You know what I mean? If you're anonymous and then they kill you, then no one's going to ever know that you leaked this information, and your death just goes without any kind of observation. It's like if we never heard of Bradley Manning, but we found the videos and then Bradley Manning was dead, we just say some leaker leaked these videos and we don't know what happened to them. Right. You know what I mean?
And it would have just probably been, back late at the feet of Julian Assange that he had the whole thing or something.
Right, or whatever. The point is that they're going to try and kill this guy. And in the event they succeed in doing that, he wants to be on record as saying, I did this for the greater good, and they killed me for it. You know what I mean? Anonymity doesn't help keep him alive in this case.
Correct.
But being completely public and transparent, which again goes to the need for transparency, and he even says as much on the video.
Yeah.
Because the transparency will give him some sort of salvation. If they do in fact try and kill him.
Well, yeah, and that's the ultimate vindication of a whistleblower is just once that knowledge reaches the public awareness and ultimately something is done about it and change is created from it, inspired out of it, and grows out of it organically, which is ultimately the goal. And the worst thing that can happen is that nothing changes.
Have you given thought to what it is that the U.S. government's response to your conduct is in terms of what they might say about you, how they might try to depict you, what they might try to do to you?
I could be, rendered by the CIA. I could have people come after me, or any of their third-party partners. They work closely with a number of other nations, or they could pay off the triads, or any of their agents or assets. We've got a CIA station just up the road in the consulate here in Hong Kong, and I'm sure they're going to be very busy for the next week. And that's a fear I'll live under for the rest of my life, however long that happens to be. You can't come forward against the world's most powerful intelligence agencies and be completely free from risk, because they're such powerful adversaries that no one can meaningfully oppose them. If they want to get you, they'll get you in time. But at the same time, you have to make a determination about what it is that's important to you. And if living unfreely but comfortably is something you're willing to accept, and I think many of us are, it's the human nature. You can get up every day, you can go to work, you can collect your large paycheck for relatively little work against the public interest, and go to sleep at night after watching your shows. But if you realize that that's the world that you helped create, and it's going to get worse with the next generation and the next generation who extend the capabilities of this sort of architecture of oppression, you realize that you might be willing to accept any risk, and it doesn't matter what the outcome is, so long as the public gets to make their own decisions about how that's applied.
Alongside the Bradley Mannings, the Daniel Ellsbergs, heroes, whistleblowers, heroes.
Just think of what he's given up.
Well, that's a perfect tease, actually, Scott. That's a perfect tease, because when we come back from this break that we're going to run to at the bottom of the hour, we're going to get to, I think, the most important part of the conversation at the end of this interview with Glenn Greenwald and The Guardian from Ed. He tells us basically what he's given up. Did you know that this guy is making a ton of money living in Hawaii in paradise, not really doing much work at all? And what would it take someone, I mean, what kind of moral internal demons would someone have to be wrestling with to be so compelled to say, I have to give up paradise to tell people about what the hell's going on? It's really impressive, and we'll get to that next on filterfreeradio.com.